I first noticed it in the little things. Monica was laughing less, texting more. She started wearing perfume again, Chanel, the one I bought her when we honeymooned in Belize, and she only ever did that when she wanted to impress someone. But the Pilates classes? The sudden brunches with Karina? Those were new. My name is Sebastian Wolfe. I'm 39, based in Miami. By day, I broker luxury yachts to men with more money than conscience. By night, well, once upon a time, I worked black-bag jobs for MI6. That part of my life is mostly buried, filed away beneath layers of NDAs and he didn't exist classifications. But the instincts? Those never left. Monica wasn't always like this. She used to be sharp, transparent, even. She was an investment banker before she retired into cocktails and country club tennis. But now she was lying, and she wasn't even good at it. Pilates ran late, she said one night, kissing me on the cheek. Her lipstick didn't smudge. It had already worn off. Karina and I grabbed drinks after. Nice, I replied, giving her a casual smile. Which instructor is it now? Nicole or Andre? She blinked too long. Andre. Yeah, there was no Andre. Back in the day, I'd have called in a drone or sent a team to track her movements. These days, I had simpler tools. My smart home system, Wolf Secure. I designed it myself, logged everything. The car's GPS told me she never went near the Pilates studio that day. In fact, she parked in a residential neighborhood in Coral Gables. Stayed there for over 3 hours. I checked the logs. She'd done that 4 times in the last month. So I dug deeper. I didn't want to believe it at first. Maybe she was helping someone. Maybe it was something benign. But then I found the burner phone. It was wedged behind her jewelry box, cheap, plastic, scratched like it had been rushed into hiding. The call history showed one number, over and over. No name, no metadata, just 10 digits. I ran them through a secure backdoor I still had access to. The name popped up like a punch to the gut. Leon Graves. Ex-Mossad. Ex-mercenary. Current security consultant with no active contracts and a pile of debt large enough to crush a small country. I recognized the name from old agency memos. He'd been flagged on at least 2 suspicious insurance claims overseas. In one, a shipping executive fell overboard during a storm. Another died in a yacht fire. Both insured. Both freshly altered policies. And now he was calling my wife. I sat in my office, staring at the call logs. Everything else around me blurred. Monica had been hiding more than bad excuses and overpriced brunches. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the old encrypted key fob from my MI6 days. The one that activated a surveillance net I'd built into the docks in the yacht office, just in case. I'd shelved it years ago. But the moment I powered it back on, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Watch. Wait. Confirm. She was planning something. And I was going to figure out what, before she made her move. The camera feeds kicked in 3 nights later. I was in my boatyard office, tucked behind a rack of teak trim and a desk that still smelled faintly of varnish. The setup looked like any other maintenance bay, but underneath the fiberglass was a full surveillance suite, installed during a paranoid phase I'd once dismissed as overkill. No? It was the smartest thing I'd ever done. The first time they met here, it was subtle. Monica arrived with Karina, both in tennis whites and oversized sunglasses, like they were headed to brunch. But they didn't go to the Marina Cafe. They slipped into Slip 14, which belonged to an out-of-service yacht I kept for staging. Leon joined them 10 minutes later. I watched on infrared. He wore a baseball cap, cheap sunglasses, and had the gait of a man who didn't care if he got caught, because he'd done this before. The audio pickup wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. He's taking the Northwind out for the regatta, Monica said, her tone even, too rehearsed. Karina leaned back against a chair and crossed her arms. Perfect storm scenario. If he goes missing at sea, no body, no questions. Just pay out. Leon grunted. Double indemnity clause? Monica nodded. Approved last month. I froze. The Northwind was my personal vessel. I had casually mentioned sailing her solo in front of Monica a few weeks ago, planting the seed to test her. I didn't think she'd latch onto it like this. Back at my desk, I opened the file I'd been building: timestamps, GPS logs, call records. Now, I added audio clips. Next, I pulled my own life insurance documents. My assistant had forwarded a routine update weeks ago, something I hadn't fully reviewed. And there it was. A new clause, slipped in quietly. Double indemnity in case of accidental death at sea. Signed by Monica as my secondary beneficiary. My blood went cold. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't even about betrayal anymore. This was logistics. A project. I dug deeper into Karina. Country club gossip pegged her as a divorcee with a trust fund and a trail of conveniently expired ex-lovers. But something didn't line up. Her finances were too clean, too curated. Then I found the pattern. 3 ex-husbands. All wealthy. All died within 5 years of marrying her. All deaths were classified as accidental or inconclusive. Yachting accident. Overdose in Bali. Drowned in a resort pool in St. Bart's. Payouts? Over 15 million combined. I stared at the names, cross-referenced the dates, and saw one name pop up in background contracts tied to security arrangements on their estates. Leon Graves. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't a desperate plan cooked up in the heat of resentment. This was a business model. I intercepted another audio file the next evening. Karina's voice. Echelon takes care of everything. She brings in the client. Leon handles the logistics. You just need to act like the grieving widow. That's the product. Echelon. I ran the name through a secure intelligence archive, an encrypted corner of the darknet only a few ex-spooks still knew how to navigate. Echelon Companions. On the surface, a high-end matchmaking agency for the ultra-rich. In reality, a brokerage of emotional leverage matching wealthy targets with professional manipulators, often leading to sudden disappearances, suicides, or accidents. And now, Monica was one of them. I sat there for a long time, staring at the monitor, the grainy black and white footage of my wife smiling beside 2 people who had killed for profit. Then I whispered out loud, to no one but myself. Game on. I knew from the moment I heard the word echelon that I wasn't just dealing with betrayal, I was walking into a system. A cold, efficient, well-oiled machine built to exploit weakness, turn love into leverage, and profit from loss. But if they wanted a ghost story, I'd give them one. The next morning, I sat at the edge of our king-size bed, tying my boat shoes while Monica got dressed behind me. She was humming some old jazz number from our playlist, the one she used to say reminded her of our early days. It was almost convincing. I was thinking, I said, not turning around, about taking the Northwind out solo. Just me and the ocean for a few weeks. Monica paused just long enough for me to notice. Really? During the regatta? Too many sponsors this year. Too much noise. I need quiet. That's sudden. I turned and smiled, letting just the right hint of distance show in my eyes. So's the way you've been acting. Her face froze for half a second. Just half. But it was enough. I needed her to believe I suspected something, but not everything. I had to play the man growing tired of his perfect life, slipping into midlife drift. The kind of man who might not notice the ice in his drink tasted slightly off. Behind the scenes, I began modifying the Northwind. She was equipped for blue water sailing, autopilot, comms, redundancies, but I added one more layer. Hidden cameras in the galley, sleeping quarters, and deck. I replaced her APERB beacon with a duplicate that transmitted on a closed channel to a private satellite account. Her bilge pumps? Wired with pressure sensors and memory locks. Her cockpit radio? Now always recording. As for the sedatives I found in Monica's overnight bag, I switched them out with over-the-counter melatonin pills and left the blister pack exactly how I found it. Let her think the plan was still on track. Then I dusted off an old contact, a ghost still lingering in the data stacks of a backdoor channel marked Cold Candle. MI6 wouldn't help directly, but they'd listen. I transmitted a single message. Wolfe. Level 4 Embedded Optimistic Threat Vector confirmed. Request passive monitoring. No interference until extraction initiated. Within hours, I got a ping back on an encrypted burst transmission, a simple green triangle. Acknowledged. While Monica focused on preparing her escape, late-night calls, hushed brunches with Karina, subtle withdrawals from our brokerage account, I fed her a steady drip of complacency. I started skipping dinners, getting distracted during conversations, letting my phone battery die mid-text. Every time I looked tired, forgetful, or passive, I could see her confidence swell. But behind the scenes, I was following the money. Monica's secret transfers were routed through a shadow client of Echelon Companions. A front named ECR Partners LLC, a shell company registered in the British Virgin Islands. Beneath it, dozens of aliases, offshore accounts, and identities that only made sense when laid against one disturbing pattern. Widows. Executives. Quiet exits. Each client matched a high-profile death that ended in a payout or inheritance reallocation. The funds were laundered through a boutique agency posing as a luxury dating service. I found a profile Monica had set up under a pseudonym, Sloan M. It listed her as a philanthropy investor looking for a line partnership. Translation: a woman ripe for seduction, sabotage, and monetization. Except this time, she was the operator. I copied everything. Every offshore ledger, every message chain, every pixel of video showing her and Leon on the yacht discussing my accident. Then I left a note in a safe deposit box that only one person had the access code to: Interpol. Just in case. I poured myself a drink that night and watched her standing on the balcony, looking out over Biscayne Bay. She looked like a painting. Elegant. Untouchable. But I knew what she really was. A wolf in silk. And I was finally done playing the sheep. I made sure the pre-regatta dinner looked and felt just right. Casual. Intimate. Candlelight flickered across Monica's flawless makeup. The wine, her favorite Syrah, flowed freely. She poured my glass twice, subtly topping it off before I could finish. "Drink up, baby," she said, her tone featherlight. "You've been so tense lately." I played my part, slouching into my chair with the sleepy grin of a man who thought he married well and aged poorly. I let my eyelids sag. Let my speech slow. Let her think it was working. She kissed me goodnight like she still loved me. I pretended to stumble slightly as I climbed aboard the Northwind alone, casting off just before midnight under a moonless sky. By dawn, the boat drifted 15 nautical miles from shore. I dropped anchor in open water and waited, sitting in the cockpit, letting the ocean hum beneath me. The cameras hidden in the rigging and the radar housing were already recording. At 2:17 a.m., the distress call came through, faint and static-heavy. My boat, my call sign, my voice. Except it wasn't me. Monica had pre-recorded it and activated the beacon from shore, setting it on a timer. According to the official log, Sebastian Wolfe had radioed in a squall and gone missing just before sunrise. Meanwhile, the real me was tucked in the engine bay, hidden behind a storage panel, holding a stun baton and a tranquilizer pin in my lap. The same gear I used in Brussels, 2011, when an asset tried to fake his own kidnapping. Some tactics never go out of style. At 3:08 a.m., I heard the creak of leather boots on fiberglass. Leon Graves had arrived. He didn't bother with stealth. I watched him through the engine bay's air slats, tall, lean, moving like a man who had done this exact thing too many times. His duffel bag hit the floor with a dull thump. He pulled out a garrote and a belt of zip ties. Then he moved toward the sleeping quarters, expecting to find me sedated. When he leaned over the bunk, I struck. The stun baton hit his ribs with enough voltage to drop a cow. He crumpled instantly, choking on a half-formed curse. I disarmed him, zip-tied his wrists, and shoved him into the storage locker under the bunk. Sloppy. He never checked for movement before approaching. Arrogance and repetition had dulled his instincts. I activated the satellite burst. Interpol's private channel lit green. 30 seconds later, I pushed the evidence packet, video, audio, and location coordinates. Proof of attempted murder. Suspect contained. Primary conspirator onshore. Proceed. While Leon groaned in the locker, I opened a direct channel to the agency's Miami field office. "This is Wolfe. Package secured. I'm sending coordinates to the secondary target." They already knew where to go. Karina and Monica had arranged to meet later that morning, an asset transfer, over coffee at a luxury condo in Brick Hill. Karina was planning to help Monica move offshore funds into a trust that would be untouchable once the death certificate came through. They'd rented a hotel suite under Monica's maiden name. There, my soon-to-be widow would receive a new identity, along with instructions on how to navigate her first public appearance as a grieving wife. She never made it. By the time I piloted the Northwind back into the marina with Leon unconscious in the hold, agents were already cuffing Karina at her table. Monica tried to flee 30 minutes later, private car, prepaid jet, Cayman Islands. But Interpol met her on the runway. She looked shocked when they called her by name. Looked even more shocked when she saw the video on the agent's phone, her face, caught on camera, whispering, "Make it look like a rogue wave took him." I stood at the dock and watched the sun come up. Alive. Awake. The victim she tried to bury had just handed her the shovel. They tried to keep Monica's arrest quiet. Private airstrip, no press, hush-hush. But by the time I got back to my office that evening, the name Echelon Companions had already hit a few encrypted law enforcement boards, and people started connecting the dots. The first official statement came from Interpol. A simple bulletin marked Tier 1 investigation initiated, EC001. Within 24 hours, over 30 high-net-worth fatalities, formerly ruled as accidents or open-ended disappearances, were reopened. The pattern was as obvious as it was horrifying. Affluent targets, mysterious deaths, beneficiaries linked to Echelon. Interpol didn't just arrest Monica and Karina. They raided the beachside estate in Sunny Isles where Karina had been preparing to onboard a new client. A 70-year-old widower with $12 million in liquid assets and a recent terminal diagnosis. She called it a pass-through companion placement. Translation: set him up, make him feel alive again, get him to change his will, and ensure he died peacefully. At the estate, agents found burner phones, stacks of fake IDs, and a hidden room with video logs. Emotional confessionals from clients being recorded during their intake sessions. It wasn't a dating service. It was a trap. Meanwhile, Monica had cracked, not from fear or remorse, but from sheer desperation to avoid a life sentence. She agreed to cooperate in exchange for a plea deal. Her testimony didn't just bury Karina, it burned down the whole forest. According to her statement, Echelon companions operated in cells. Each city had recruiters, operators, and handlers, people like Leon who executed the physical side. The masterminds were based in Switzerland, hiding behind layers of corporate fronts and private clinics that masked psychological screening operations. What Monica revealed stunned even me. Echelon didn't just target wealthy victims randomly. They profiled spouses. They looked for frustration, resentment, hidden anger beneath expensive smiles. A stay-at-home wife who resented her husband's gambling. A second wife, 20 years younger, stuck in a glass cage of status and suffocation. A former executive's husband, emotionally neglected but married to a power attorney with a retirement plan. They found discontent, then fed it. They found me through a private concierge, Monica said during interrogation. Karina introduced me to a wellness advisor. I thought it was coaching. It turned out to be something else. Something liberating. She said it like she was describing a yoga retreat. Her cooperation opened the gates. Data dumps. Names. Account numbers. Meetings that had been off the books for years suddenly became breadcrumbs leading to a much larger truth. The final report named Echelon Companions a transnational criminal enterprise. 34 suspicious deaths across 8 countries. At least 12 of the deceased had life insurance or estate modifications enacted within 90 days of their deaths. Many of them shared one common thread. They were dating, married to, or being guided by someone Echelon had placed in their lives. Karina confessed in a post-arrest deposition that Monica had been handpicked months ago, not just because of her beauty or charisma, but because of me. She was frustrated, restless, stuck. Sebastian had the kind of assets that made him worth the effort. We didn't have to sell her on it. She asked how soon she could start. That was the line that stayed with me. Not the betrayal, not the lies, but the cold efficiency of how easily my life had been turned into a ledger item. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was a payout, a number with a heartbeat, and they nearly made it stop. I knew something was off the second I stepped into the chalet. The retreat had been designed with curated perfection, gleaming wood panels, snow-draped balconies, and the kind of luxury that whispered instead of screamed. Rhine's people had placed me in a room overlooking a frozen valley, the kind of postcard view meant to loosen secrets. But when I entered, the curtains were already drawn, the fire already lit, and the warmth too inviting. They knew. I didn't see her until I turned toward the window. Dr. Isabel Rhine, standing with her back to me, dressed not in her usual polished black, but in white, like a doctor prepared for surgery. James, she said softly, still facing the glass. Or should I say, Sebastian? I didn't flinch. I couldn't afford to. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. I replied evenly. She finally turned. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes burned with something darker than rage. You passed every test. You were one of our best applicants. I saw real potential in you. And yet, you were just here to sabotage it. She moved to the desk and picked up a tablet. Swiped. Your wife, Monica. She reached out after her arrest. Said something about you being cleverer than she gave you credit for. I don't usually take calls from people who fold that quickly, but I was curious. There it was. The leak. Monica, from her cell, trying to trade information for leniency. She said you'd come for me, Ryan continued. That you'd make it look like you were grieving, broken, willing to kill. I must admit, she was right. You played the part beautifully. I took a step back. That's when I noticed it, barely audible. The soft click of a deadbolt locking behind me. The door. I turned fast, but the two guards were already there, tall, suited, silent. No weapons drawn. They didn't need to. This wasn't going to be a fight. This was going to be a message. You've already sent the data to Interpol, she said, almost amused. But it won't matter. Do you know how many clients I still have in power? Senators, judges, bankers, even agents inside the very organizations chasing me. You haven't stopped anything. You've just exposed yourself. She tapped the tablet again. A video popped up on the large wall monitor, me. Or rather, a deepfake of me, sitting on a couch in this very room, tearfully confessing to fabricating evidence, to obsessing over Monica, to losing control. A suicide note. You think I wouldn't have a contingency? She said coldly. This isn't a retreat anymore. This is your ending. They moved then. The guards pulled me from the wall, fast and practiced, dragging me down a narrow hallway to the basement. A concrete room with no windows, just a steel cot and a camera in the corner. One of them whispered, she said, to leave him conscious. For now. When the door slammed shut, I sat up and reached into my boot. They missed the watch. Not just any watch, a custom Omega modded with a burst transmission relay, a microtorch, and a ceramic blade hidden beneath the faceplate. Old habits die hard. It took 15 minutes to cut through the vent grill and slip into the access crawl space. I was 2 levels below the main floor, right beneath the security hub. As I moved, I activated the avalanche siren system, the retreat's emergency alarm, wired directly to the local authorities and, more importantly, to Interpol's Alpine liaison. Within 5 minutes, the mountain echoed with howls. Red lights flashed. Guards scrambled. And I climbed, room by room, until I hit the top floor. I spotted Ryan as she bolted toward the snowmobiles, wrapped in a fur-lined coat, her tablet clutched to her chest like a holy relic. She didn't see me coming. I tackled her off the vehicle just as its engine roared to life. You're done, I growled. She fought, kicking and twisting like a cornered predator. But she wasn't trained for this. I pinned her, ripped the tablet from her hands, and held it in the air just as the helicopter came into view over the ridge. Spotlight. Rotor wash. Snow exploding around us. The Interpol team touched down hard. Ryan shrieked as agents swarmed in, cuffing her hands behind her back. I have more clients than you'll ever find. She screamed as they dragged her toward the chopper. You'll never prosecute them all. I stood there in the snow, blood on my collar, heart pounding. She was wrong. Because I wasn't done. I just started. 3 months after Ryan was taken off that mountain in cuffs, the first court date was set in The Hague. The charges were staggering. Conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, financial fraud, and dozens of counts of criminal facilitation across multiple countries. The courtroom was sealed for much of the trial. Too many names, too many powerful people. But the media still caught wind. Soon, Echelon Companions was a global headline. The stories unraveled daily. A South African developer accidentally poisoned on safari. A Belgian heiress drowned while swimming alone off the Amalfi coast. A Canadian venture capitalist found dead in a remote cabin, his will updated just weeks before. 37 deaths. And those were just the confirmed ones. Monica, in her beige prison jumper and flat voice, testified for 2 full days. She named recruiters, fund managers, and handlers. She outlined how Karina had taught her to manipulate targets with empathetic grief and situational flattery. How Ryan had created an internal ranking system, spouses who were willing, coachable, or high risk. She broke down only once, when she talked about our marriage. I didn't want to kill him at first, she said, as glassy but dry. But I felt invisible, like I was a passenger in a life that didn't belong to me. Echelon gave me a way out, and I was stupid enough to take it. The court didn't care. She was sentenced to 42 years. Eligible for parole in 25. Karina got life without possibility. Leon, after flipping too late, died in pretrial custody. Cause listed as suicide. I didn't believe it for a second. Ryan? Ryan didn't flinch when the judge delivered her verdict. Life without parole. No possibility of transfer. No reduction for cooperation. She smiled as they led her away. I'll be studied, she said, turning to me in the gallery. Maybe not today. But someday. I didn't respond. Because she was right. Echelon was formally declared a transnational criminal organization, the first of its kind in the emotional exploitation category. New laws were passed across Europe and North America to regulate relational consulting agencies. Insurance firms rewrote their beneficiary assessment procedures. Security firms revised background check protocols for domestic hires. And me? I was offered a senior position within Interpol's Psychological Ops Division, a hybrid role that combined field strategy with behavioral analysis. I turned it down. The truth was, I couldn't go back to being part of another system, no matter how righteous. I'd spent too long moving in shadows. Too long trusting faces that smiled while sharpening blades behind their backs. So I disappeared from the public ledger. Sold the yacht brokerage. Liquidated my remaining offshore holdings. Donated the proceeds, anonymously, to a foundation supporting victims of domestic manipulation and financial abuse. I kept nothing. Except for one item. Monica's engagement ring. I found it tucked in a drawer after she was arrested. Small, simple, platinum band with a sapphire. No inscription. Just a hollow circle where meaning used to be. I carry it now in a drawer of my desk in a one-room cabin just north of Lake Superior. No power. No signal. Just cold air, the smell of pine, and silence. Sometimes I take it out and roll it between my fingers. Not because I miss her, but because I don't ever want to forget what charm looks like when it's weaponized. I was supposed to be dead. Instead, I exposed an empire. And I plan to stay gone. Because the only peace I trust now is the kind no one else can touch.